Let's pull into the power who brought us here and keeps us here, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, well, it's so nice to see you all. It's better inside than outside, except for the 60-degree people. I'd go out there with a beach chair, but anyway. So I'll just dive in with a kind of a sensitive topic. I know it's not about sex, but anyway, it's a 10%. It's a really tender kind of a topic, and it's about sponsorship. Now, we've talked about this before, but I don't know how many months or years ago. But sponsorship has all different kinds of facets. And it's like, how do we sponsor? When do we sponsor? When do we let go? And on and on and on. So I'll just throw out some facets for your consideration. And it's like, if we're sponsoring somebody and we've carried them for years or a couple of years and they don't work the program, why are we holding on? Are we doing them any favor to give them the opinion that they've got a sponsor and they're not doing anything? Now, I've had occasion much earlier on in my sobriety to fire a couple of guys, not fire, to let them go. And they came back individually and thanked me because it woke them up. It's like, oh, you mean you really have to actually work this thing? You have to participate in it. And it made me feel great. And it made them feel great. We're not doing anybody favors for that. Now, why aren't we letting go? Maybe we just like them for our ego. We've got a little person here and they're just walking around with us. And so we're really working the program, We're not working the program. So the bottom line for me is God. I'm not invited because he's saved my life to turn around and try to be God with anybody else. I'm bound by my relationship with God to be honest. That doesn't mean to be horrible and in my sponsorship or any, things like that, but to tell the truth. And, I had to let go of a sponsor fairly recently, and it's scary. It's scary because he's walked with me, you know what I'm saying, and he's taken time with me and so on, but it just ain't coming up roses for me. So and then try to find a new sponsor at 48 years sober. That's the deal. And so the only way I can get a sponsor is it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's not a matter of age and chevrons on your sleeve, but it's a matter of somebody who works the program. And the last time I did work the program, I did it with a guy that I've sponsored for 30 years. And he called me out on some stuff, not roughly, but anyway. Does this sound like a topic that's worth talking about? Okay. All right. So we'll start with you, Beth, if you'd like, or if you wouldn't like, I'll call on you later.
That's fine. Thank you for calling on me. Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Okay, we'll start with somebody else who just crawled out of bed. We'll talk later. Anyways,
Shut up. I'm okay. My name is Beth. I'm alcoholic. Good evening, everybody. Greetings from cold and DC, Colorado. I think, sponsorship, in my experience, sponsorship is a really sacred path to walk with someone, in our recovery. And I take it very seriously. And I take that bond very seriously. And it's paramount that they are doing the deal as the way I've been, taught early on in the program. And it'll be 2 years this February that I'll have been working with Cheryl W. And she's someone that I met here in Colorado. And prior to that, I had a long time sponsor. And it ended up where I was dying inside. And I was doing meetings, I was doing service work, and had a home group. She had sister sponsees meeting every Sunday night. I'd attend that meeting, and yet I just, there's just something inside that was just missing, like almost like I had outgrown her, and I wasn't getting filled up inside. And it's a really lonely place to be, when you're with your sponsor and then her sponsor and then all the other sponsees and sister sponsees, and I'm not connecting with them. And, these are some phenomenal women in recovery, and yet there's just something missing. And through meeting Cheryl at a meeting here in Littleton, it just clicked. Like I always just loved what she had to say. I loved her. She walked the walk. And whenever she spoke with such purity and honesty, and made herself so vulnerable, that I instantaneously related to her. It's like a soul connection. And that's what I've been yearning for so many years, that soul connection. And through that, I've had the opportunity to do the steps so differently with her. And she told me, this is radical way of, walking through the steps. This is going to be a radical experience. Are you ready for it? And I'm like, bring it. Let's go. And it has been radical. And in fact, I just called her this morning. I was on the verge of tears, just being overwhelmed with just some, life on life's terms. And I was having a hard time accepting my 33-year-old daughter, where she's at in her life, and on the verge of tears. And she's taught me that, these red flags come up, take a break, pause, do that 10-step, and call her up. I was able to do my 10-step with her. That to me is radical. I never did that before. I did the, semi-quasi 10-step where I would just either, read it and then say it out loud, or, there's an app. There's like a 10-step app that I'd fill out and I'd send it to my sponsor. And, it's not the same. It's not getting down to the causes, conditions, where it affects me, how it's showing up in my life. And that's radical. And that, I could talk forever about, how amazing this program is and sponsorship, but it's so important to find that connection with someone. And no matter how messy I am, or how unbecoming I behave, or, silly, or like, good morning, everybody, like whatever, like, she loves me unconditionally, and she relates a lot to what I'm going through and what I struggle with in my recovery after so many years in the program. So, I can't speak highly enough of how important sponsorship is. And if it's not working for you where you're at right now, and it's like you're not growing inside, or you're just left, confused or sad or lonely or whatever, get a new sponsor. Pray for someone else to show up in your life. It's my experience is that God always provides the right person at the right time. And that's been my experience throughout my recovery. And for that, I'm forever grateful. So this is an amazing topic. I love my sponsor. She's with her daughter right now. She told me she couldn't make it this evening. I guess that's all I have. But yeah, it's vital. It's vital to my recovery that I have a sponsor that I can really connect with on a soul to soul level. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you so much, Beth. And then there's the who's talking. There's the who's talking to take a look at. So I sponsor a guy, and I've sponsored him for probably over 20 years. And he calls, well, I'd have to look at the calendar. He calls every week at the same time and the same day. And I don't know that we could maybe count how many words that I used in these guys, or maybe these guys. What I did is I listened, and he took care of business. He laid out his 10th step. He talked about where it hurts. And it was just so delightful to hear this guy carry this program in his soul and talk about it. And then I just told him I loved him. He told me he loved me. And he's a great guy, and he's also a wonderful chef. And he called up, and Maria and I just celebrated our 52-year marriage. And he just, thank you, David. And he called and he said, I left something for you on the front porch, and it was like one of the most fabulous meals. And it was a prime rib about this thick. And I thought I would die and go to heaven. I never tried that in my life. And well, anyway, blah, 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 boom, blah, boom. So, Rami, it's good to see you, obviously, again. And would you care to share?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. I've got a contractor hammering in the background. I pushed my sponsee off tonight. Like, we kind of had arrangement, but I was supposed to go somewhere else. Anyway, it worked out perfectly that I could be here. And I love the topic. I tried to sponsor one of Mickey's sponsees, actually, just the other day. But at least I did it in a fashion where I came to Mickey, I said, I'm worried. And he said, and then he told me this beautiful response, and I was like, all the worry has gone. I don't recommend in your mind sponsoring somebody else's sponsors. I just don't recommend it. Like, there's enough going on right here with me and my sponsees and stuff, but I just thought that was funny. And I just love when you said, I just listen to them. They really need us to hear them. And I figured if he's not worried about it, then I don't need to worry about it, and I'll go back to another Al-Anon meeting. So I just was willing to admit my things and then go deal with it. So anyway, I just to go off on a little bit of Beth's topic, and Mickey, I think I've just heard you saying these meetings over and over again, active sponsorship. And I felt every time I heard it, I felt like I didn't have it. And so I just knew it was time, especially once we started to go to Zoom. And, so God sent me this beautiful woman in one of these squares here. And she said, and she's gentle and sweet and kind and the complete opposite to my mother and the way I was raised, the complete opposite to me. And she just said, why don't we do a 4-step on that? And then she said, why don't we do 1, 2, and 3 first? Why don't we go through all the steps together? I'm like, oh my God, hallelujah. Somebody in the sweetest, softest way said, would you like to run through the steps again for the first time again in 12 years? I kind of live and work in the steps all the time. I'm always doing like a 1 to 7, 1 to 7, 9 if I need to. I do 11 and 12 every day. So I kind of live in the steps, but I didn't get officially for the second time, like I've done them once in AA, twice in Al-Anon. I didn't actually have gone through them one by one by one, but I'm really thoroughly living in them. I didn't just do the steps and then heck with them, you know. But so it was so lovely to go, oh my God, it's active sponsorship again. And we just finished all 12 of them. So I feel really good about it. And it's just nice to really there's something when you've got a connection with a sponsor and there's a maturity there and I don't know, there's something like a looking forward to the love and the embrace and the warmth of good sponsorship that you look forward to it. And yeah, I think that the reason our relationship works, I think she says I give it my all. I put in as much as she's going to put in, and I want that for my sponsees. And so on your topic, Mickey, I think we can't want their recovery more than they do. That's what I got taught here. And I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to give them a few chances, you know, because I'm not going to be a bitch like, oh, you're not doing this, so I'm out of here. I'm going to explain to them that this needs to be fine-tuned. Otherwise, I can't do a one-way street, you know. So sometimes you have to let sponsors go because they're not doing your service. Sometimes you have to let sponsees go because they're not willing to meet you. So what the hell? And can I do this? I'm going to go now. Thanks.
I'm sorry. I hear.
Yeah, right. God almighty. Love you.
Thank you, Rami. God bless you. Yeah, if I'm working harder on your sobriety than you are, something's way screwed up. And it's not judgmental, and it's not sitting up on some throne and you know and looking down on anyone. God, we all have a fatal disease, and we have one day, you know, redemption from that. Is there somebody who would really like to talk? And please just shoot your hand up, and I'll call on you. It's not to the firing squad. Okay, Wyatt Valentine, and then you, Max.
Hey, everybody. I'm Wyatt. I'm an alcoholic. Good to see everybody. Happy anniversary, Mickey and Marie. That's wonderful. And
Thank you.
It's a great topic. You know, I've had a few sponsors over the years and some really good ones and some fabulous ones, in fact. But there have been a couple of times where I've had to switch mules or switch horses and everything. And it's very challenging. And, you know, I remember, so I was at a meeting not too long ago out here in Los Angeles and ran into a guy outside the meeting. He said, "Oh, yeah, hi, how you doing? You know, you're one of those big book guys and everything, but you're nice." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, see, that was one of the nicest things, you know, because anyone said to me, because some of these big book people have like a reputation of being like hard asses or whatever. And I don't think that's really what it's about, as we know here. That's not the spirit in which the book was written. In fact, my opinion is that people that actually practice what's the spirit of the big book are some of the most patient, tolerant, kind, and loving people that I've ever met. And having said that, also, not really, I don't think our job is to be patient, or not patient, but to put up with someone's alcoholism to the point where they're not doing anything. And that, you know, I had to let some people go too. You know, I think I had this book, and Working with Others says, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. And so this intensive work is what we want to do when we meet with other alcoholics, I believe. You know, we're working with others. And it's not working for others or working on others, it's working with others. And I found that there have been times where with my sponsor, I'm the one that's like, hey, you know, I'm trying to do some intensive work here. And I have to like be the one that's like always the one that's, I got, you know, some spiritual work I need to get done here. And I'm not getting I'm not getting a reciprocation there of what I would, you know, an appropriate response to my condition. And so I have had to run into that situation where I've had to switch sponsors, and we get used to a certain way of working the program. Everyone's maybe got like some different flavors, and it's okay, whatever works for anybody, but I'm sort of used to doing a regular 10th step. I'm used to doing a pass through the steps annually or semi-annually. These are some of the things that I like to do, that I'm used to doing, and it seems to help to keep me spiritually fit. And I like to work with a sponsor that encourages that. And I also encourage that in the guys that I work with. And some of them are not, they're not interested in doing regular 10 steps. And I've had to actually let people go eventually because they're not doing any 10 step. All they do is, well, I just asked God to remove it. I don't think I need to write anymore. And, and then they don't have any problems to talk about ever. It's like, okay, bye. You know what I mean? So, I'm used to doing it a certain way. And I learned that around these rooms right here. And that's the way I like to do it. And it's working for me. And I don't want to stop doing it. And if you want what I have, then I'll show you what I did, and we can do that together. If you're not interested in that, then we can go our separate ways. I read an interesting little thing, and I want to keep this brief, but it was some sort of considerations about when we're working with others. It wasn't actually talking about AA, but it says, are you sure you're personally not taking credit for the help that you're giving to your sponsees, right? Are you quite sure you're not in a secret pleasure and pride in their attitude and respecting you? Are you sure there is no self-seeking involved in this work that you're doing? Are you sure that the teachings you are giving out are directly from God and they're not your personal views? Are you tainting this work by subtly introducing your personality into it? Can you say that you have only loving and helpful thoughts and speak only God's words when asked with or talking about other sponsors or teachers, no matter who they may be? When you meet one who's coming to a higher realization of God than you, does only the purest brotherly love go out from you to that soul? Are you sure that you are doing all that you do without the thought of reward, caring not for the results, resting only in the consciousness that God is taking care of all these things? I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but those are some things I had to ask myself this morning when I was in my morning meditation. And it turns out I felt like there was some ego in my work still, and there's still some work to be done. And even considering that, though, I have to keep moving forward. And we are the wounded healers, and I have an ego still, and I have to learn how to live with that and still carry a message while still having an ego and not letting that get in the way. Anyway, I think I've taken up all my time, even though we don't have a timer here, which we do in Los Angeles, and they only give you like 2 or 3 minutes to talk. So I start like talking really fast. So if I'm talking fast, forgive me. I do get a little wound up about this subject sometimes. It's something I need to do to stay alive, is having a sponsor and sponsoring people. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do that. I've dedicated my life to serving God through Alcoholics Anonymous, and it seems like the perfect vehicle to treat the particular brand of spiritual malady that I'm afflicted with. And I like to stay alive a little bit longer. So God.
Thank you very much, Wyatt. Thank you. I'm going to insert one person before you, Max, because this is a real important person to me. And then I'm going to call on you. Is that okay?
Yeah, I know I'm the favorite, Mickey. It's all good.
All right. This is Marie Musset from Denver. Would you like to share?
Hi, my name is Marie, and I'm a very grateful Al-Anon. I've gone through probably 7 sponsors in a lot of years, and for various reasons, I've had to move on, and it is really hard. And one of the things that's a danger with either sponsors or sponsees is becoming just friends, and you end up filling up the hour. I typically work with somebody at least, about an hour a week. And when you're filling up the whole time with just chit chat, and you try to get them back on the path of working the program, it's really, it finally gets to be a kind of a really awkward situation, and I had that with someone recently, and I think the transition that we made was that I said to her that, you know, she could call me when she had some 10-step to do, and as I kind of suspected, you know, it just went away, because, you know, she really just wanted a friend, and you know, that's hard. We have friends in the program, but I think that, you know, spiritual direction is a serious thing, and it's not that we can't be friendly, but the spiritual direction, I think, needs to come first, and then the friendship second. And I have to feel free to be honest, and what I was always afraid of being a sponsor was that there was the only way I could be honest was to be mean, and that's just not how it's turned out. When I ask for God's words, He is so kind. God is really a kind, loving, sweet person, entity, and His words are just sweetness, you know. So when I really allow God to talk through me, even some of the hardest messages really come across very gently. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Okay, so Wyatt, you talked about a timer. Well, I'm not going to actually put a timer going here, but we've got a half an hour to get to people, and so let's try to be, you know, as concise as we can. Max, would you like to share?
Sure. Thanks, Mick. I'll keep it short and sweet. Yeah, I mean, sponsorship for me. So I've had Rogan as my sponsor for, you know, about 12 years. My first sponsor I had for about 50 days, and he went back out drinking, which was weird because I was like, do I start drinking if my sponsor starts drinking? And luckily that didn't happen. And then I took a break from Rogan for like a year. I call it a break because I knew that the person that I asked to be my sponsor would be really light and, you know, not call me out on my stuff. And, yeah, it was just one of those periods where I was like, yeah, I know that, you know, I can give this guy 80%. He's not going to hound me, right? That doesn't work with Rogan. But sponsorship for me sponsoring other people has been, you know, all around. It's been, you know, getting to be friendly with someone and realizing that, you know, it's probably a better relationship as friends rather than, you know, sponsor. I've also been the guy that's like, you know, beaten someone over the head with the big book. You know, I've been, you know, everything in between of sponsorship. And like you were saying, Mick, I know that me being most effective is like just, you know, trying to keep my ego out of it, like Wyatt was talking about, and really trying just to listen, to be helpful. I know I make sure to, like, you know, do a little prayer meditation before I'm doing, you know, any calls with my sponsees. That way, you know, it's not me running the show. It's you know, being a channel. But yeah, sponsorship is it's super vital. I mean, I went for a pretty long time in COVID without sponsees just because, you know, we couldn't make it out to meetings, and it was very difficult. And, you know, I'd pop on the meetings, but, you know, it was different and very strange. You know, I kind of felt that as being a part that was kind of missing, you know, not that I was, you know, going crazy, but I was like, oh, you know, yeah, I'm calling other guys to check in and how they're doing, but, you know, I'm not really working my 12 step as most effectively as I could, which is really, really important. For me, sponsorship on both sides is, you know, not to say it's checking a box, but, you know, if I'm looking at my tally sheet of being sober today, like, you know, I need to check some boxes. One is like, you know, am I being sponsored effectively? Which is like, you know, am I doing inventory and doing weekly stuff with Rogan, and my sponsoring other guys, which is really, taking them through the work, because I've had it where, sponsees wouldn't call me for weeks or months at a time and sponsor by name deal. And, that's just usually fades out over time. It's funny, I had a new sponsee a couple of weeks ago, and he was late. He was 10 minutes late for our call, which was one of our first calls. And I knew immediately, I was like, you just get that feeling when you meet someone where you're like, yeah, they're not going to last. You know what I mean? Like, you just know it. And not to be judgmental, but, being sober for 12 years and meeting all sorts of people and young people, you get a feeling, you get a sense for people of like, yeah, he's probably not willing to go to any lengths to stay sober. I know it's going to be like pulling teeth for this kid to write inventory. You know what I mean? So, but he called me yesterday and he was like, oh yeah, I've been getting drunk and, smoking weed and all that stuff. I was like, yeah, I could have told you that. You don't need to call me and tell me, what do you want to do? And he's like, I was like, it really sounds like you're not done yet. He's like, yeah, I don't think I am. I was like, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. I don't give a shit if you're getting high and drinking. But, he's a drug addict. And unfortunately, like, fentanyl is a very real thing for drug addicts nowadays. And I was like, hopefully you don't die. But, sponsorship for me is definitely very secret. I think it's really, really important on both sides of it. I cherish the time of my weekly calls with Rogan, and not just to chit chat, but to go through inventory and do some really good stuff. And vice versa with the guys that call me. So, I appreciate the time, Nick, and hopefully I left some time for some other people.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Max. John Akins, would you like to share?
Hey everyone, John Akins, alcoholic. Yeah, so I have the things that I keep hearing. I keep hearing the word sacred and praying on things and who's talking, right? Because in various times in my sobriety and my sponsorship life, I've sponsored people for compliance, right? Because the spiritual awakening after 11 steps is different than the one after 12 steps. So I did it just to put the check mark in the box. I've done it for ego. I kind of liked being mean. I kind of liked being bossing people around and telling people you're not doing it right. That's like the theme of all of my 10 steps. You're not doing it right. But then eventually, thank God, through good sponsorship, I learned that it's really, who am I serving here? Who's doing the talking? And when I let God do the talking, I think I'm a lot more effective. I want to just share two brief stories. One I thought of when Marie was talking about being friends, and this is, there's the fellowship, and then there's sobriety, and one of these is a sacred deal, with a life-threatening illness. We have a friend here in Phoenix who we buried. It must be close to 10 years ago he died. Tommy's on the call. This was Jerry Josen. I don't know if you remember him. Jerry was a young guy in his 40s with a wife and a young kid and just had everything. He was a very successful pediatric ENT, really a wonderful career, well-loved in the community, and he hanged himself. And when his sponsor started talking about it, he said, my mistake was that I let him become a friend. Wasn't able to tell him the truth. And now he doesn't blame himself for his death. I mean, this is part of what we do. But the point is that if we become friends with these guys, we're not doing anyone a service. That's not why we're here. I'll tell you a really interesting story. I was working with a guy. I may have shared this story before, but I was working with a guy who clearly wasn't ready. And we did the first step, we did the second step, and I'm about to do the third step prayer with him. And I am struck with this incredible thought not to do the third step with him. And I closed my book and I said, I'm just getting this thought that that maybe this is not appropriate for you. Maybe, it sounds like you got things under control, but to me, I don't know that it makes sense for you to continue with the steps. No, I didn't do it in a harsh way. And he said, yeah, I think you're right. I'm not really relating to anything that's going on here. And I sent him on his way. I said, call me whenever you want. And I get not a phone call. I get a picture from his wife. You're going to love this. He is passed out dead drunk in his front lawn, just face down, sprawled out. And his wife is sending me these pictures and you can't really tell tone from text messages, but I could tell the tone from the text message. Did you tell him to drink? Oh, dear Lord. But meanwhile, here's the blessing, right? After he celebrated a year of sobriety, he came up to me and he said, John, I want to thank you for saving my life. I didn't save his life. I just let God speak through me. And that I'll pass.
Thank you so much, John. Debbie O. from Maine, would you like to share?
Thanks, Mickey. Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie, and I'm an alcoholic. I was just thinking how much it's almost impossible not to see God in these relationships if you're looking. Like, it doesn't matter if you're the sponsor or the sponsee. And it's just the way it's laid out, the way the relationship is laid out, like from the founders of AA. It's just such a, I don't know, it's such a miracle and a blessing. Just if I had anything to do with it, my hands were in it anyway. I would not be as perfect as it is. And I've had some really blessed relationships with sponsees, and I happen to be blessed right now. I have a few that I've had for more than a couple of years, and it's just so amazing to see. And it also is one of these relationships that's so concentrated that I don't do this with every relationship. But before I get on the phone and I ask God to speak through me, I ask God to let me be that channel. I should do that with everyone, but I don't. But it's one of those things, like, it's like, all right, I know I'm going to have that phone call, so I know I'm going to talk to God first. And, but here's something that happened recently that, I talk about seeing God in the relationship, but I had a sponsor that I had for quite some years. And I knew that it was not working, but I kept ignoring God. So, like, whenever God would come in, I would just, like, push him back out. Because I really wanted this relationship to keep working. She had done so much for me, and I had been taken to a level that I never thought I could be taken. And so I just held on, like fingernails on the chalkboard for like 6 months. And I knew because the woman that's my sponsor right now was brought into my life like 3 months before I even asked her. Like, God was like, I'm not giving up. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And I kept ignoring him. And so, it was sad to end that relationship. I definitely held on too long. Like, I think I wanted it to not be as sad as it was. I thought if I held on, so I don't know what I was managing every part of it. But, so I'm working with someone new, and I'm getting taken to even greater depths. Like, I never thought. I thought, if I leave this person, I will never find God again, because she's the one that's taking me to him. And that's just not what's happening. And of course, it doesn't happen that way. But so that's been a pretty recent experience of mine. And so I am very blessed. God has done it again and put the perfect person in my life just when I needed her. So anyway, with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Debbie. Darren from New York City, would you like to share?
Sure, thanks. I'm Darren. I'm an alcoholic. What a great topic. A friend from New York recommended this meeting in Denver, I think. So I kind of relating to the person who spoke before me. For 10 years, I thought I had the perfect sponsor. Like, it just got no better. He knew people in the rooms. He had a great sponsor himself. And, for a while, he had what he wanted, he had what I wanted, and I just couldn't stay sober, and he had a reputation for being there for his sponsees and having kind of like lifelong relationships with his sponsees. And so when he fired me, it really, man, I felt like the ultimate AA loser. Like who could get fired by this guy? But in retrospect, he really did me a favor. I'm just listen. I hear him saying he did me a favor, but I'm still resentful. It's kind of my ego's hurt. I'll go down forever in New York as the guy who lost this guy. Um, but he taught me a lot of things that I have so I have a sponsor now who sometimes I find myself comparing what my current sponsor is telling me versus what this guy for 10 plus years told me. And I'm realizing, and you hear this, but now I'm seeing it. Like, I guess as a sponsee or as a recovering man in AA, like I take what works, what sounds like it's spiritually based, or if it's coming from God. And, just try to take the best of what I've learned. And I feel like I'm pretty well-rounded in that sense. Even though I've got a couple of months of sobriety. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Darren. I'm so glad you're with us, and please come back if you care to. Jamie R. from Manasquan, New Jersey. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did, Mickey. Thank you. My name's Jamie. I'm an alcoholic. So I'm just sitting here, and the gentleman that just spoke before is reminding me, and this is like a different aspect than everybody else is speaking, but I was actually still in rehab, and I went to a place that was called New Beginnings Ministry up in like upstate Pennsylvania, like north of like Scranton, like almost New York border, like middle of nowhere stuff. And first you get like 12 hours in this joint, and like they're like, start reading the book, get a sponsor, start doing the steps, bang, 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 like really jamming it down you. And listen, like I was broken down and beaten. I would take a lead life preserver at this point if they said it was going to save my life. But the guy that they assigned me as my sponsor, I think I worked with him for like, I was up there 2 months. I think I worked with him for like 5 weeks, and he was doing grimy shit, man. And I recognized it right out of the gate. Like, this guy's supposed to be, this guru, and he walked around like, everybody loved him, and like he had a different broad back in his room every night, and like he walked a walk, he talked the talk, I'm sorry, but his walk wasn't lining up right. And it just hit my memory, like this came back to me. I was like, holy shit, like this guy Dan, I remember his name, and sure enough, man, like he's, eventually I spoke to him later, a couple of years later, and he was like, yeah, I was experimenting with LSD and spiritual awakening because, I read that, I read that led you there. And I was like, thank God I didn't follow in your footsteps, man. Like, anyway, I was just reminiscing, but thanks for calling on me, Mick.
Thank you, Jamie. And our real reliance is always to be upon God. And the big book is my bullshit sifter. If I read this and I follow what it says, even if it's like half-hearted, it's better than no-hearted. And alcoholism wants to kill me, but first it wants to get me alone. And that is talking with Max about, we walk together and we need that. But if we're not of the book, are we going to walk off a cliff? I don't need it. I walked off a cliff getting here. So, Chuck Leamy, would you like to share?
Hi, everybody. My name is Chuck. I'm an alcoholic. And such a great topic, Mickey, by the way. When you called on me, just a little side note, you called on me at 7:47 East Coast time, which is the great lady of the skies. 7:47. It's going to be extinct soon. Anyway, sponsorship. You have been my sponsor. You guys ready for this? For almost 30 years. That is a long time. Because, like, left to my own devices, like, I run games and I bullshit and I tell you the answer you want to hear. And Mickey holds me, you know, like he's a true voice for God because he holds me accountable. You know, he, like, in the name of God, he holds me accountable. So when I try to bullshit, and that's what I need. Because my sense of self and ego is so strong, left untethered. And it's like, there's certain things I got to do every day. I got to pray, I got to meditate, but on Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern time, that's my 10-step time with Mickey. You know, we get down to business. You know, it's like, yeah, we bullshit afterwards, but you know, we, like, for the most part, we you know, and he tells me the truth. That is my job. You know, I'm not here to get anybody sober. I'm here to tell people the truth so that I can bring people into the light. You know, at the same time, this is like I sponsor a couple guys, and it's like, you know what, God, and I pray, and in my thoughts, he tells me, don't judge. That's left for me. And that resonates, you know, really deeply with me. And I just got to be clear. Like, you know, if I'm not clear with God and work in the program, then I can't be a channel of his peace to help his children that I'm sponsoring. But it's amazing. You know, when I'm right, and my sponsoring calls every week for 10-step too. One of them does. And it's like I'm just a channel. And this stuff comes out of my mouth that I never would have said otherwise. You know, that you know, but it's an amazing thing. You know, it's just a part of it. I thought, oh wow, you know, I'm gonna become when I first came in a lot of years ago, you know, I'm gonna be this guru and be able to travel all the. No. All God wanted me to do was to get sober so that I could help his children. That's it. And then bring more people into the light. So anyway, I hope I haven't gone on too long. Excuse me. Happy anniversary. 52 years. That, in this day and age, that is amazing. Bravo.
Thank you so much, Chuck. God
Love
bless.
you, buddy.
Love you too. So the whole thing about, for me, being a sponsor is God is watching. And he says to me, you know, Mickey, I gave you one of my kids. You know what I'm saying? And I got to answer for that. That's why I go stay with the book. I try to stay with the book because it's like, listen, he's listening and I'm responsible for him to be a mouthpiece. Tommy O, would you like to share?
Sure, thanks, Mickey, and congratulations on 52 years, Mickey Marie. My name is Tommy O'Rourke, and I'm an alcoholic from Phoenix. So first off, the first thing that resonated with me when you picked the topic of sponsorship was just a tremendous gratitude for those who have taken time to sit down and do step work with me over the years. One of the greatest gifts we have, or one of the greatest things we have, is time. And even the guys that I did step work with early that were not big book thumpers, that I would be sitting in the back of Denny's for 4 and 6 and 8 hours And whether it was step work or whether it was just, hey, we're identifying, I'm grateful for that. I really am. One of the things I found is that I've always been sponsored since day one, and my sponsor got me into sponsoring others very quickly. And I'm extremely grateful for that. That relationship and feeling a part of and helping God's kids has been great for my recovery. And I'm amazed how many times I go through the steps with a new guy or even with somebody. I just took a guy through the steps who'd been sober for 23 years. I had never done that before. And he had an awful lot of prejudices and preconceived notions. And we let God sort that out. We let it do. But every time I go through the steps with somebody, my spirit grows. And my God consciousness grows as I go through it. And I'm grateful for that too. Just a quick story. Somewhere between years 3 and 8, I had originally gotten a sponsor who was a non-big book guy. And how do you know, right? How do you know when you're dying and you've got a cirrhotic liver and jaundiced eyes? How do you know? You just get going. And I'm grateful I got going. But I found myself being attracted to people walking into meetings with this book and people in meetings saying, here's the step work I'm doing with my sponsor, and here's the stuff I'm doing with my sponsee. And during that time, I had gotten some spiritual friends in AA. And one of my spiritual buddies said to me, I said to him, I don't feel like I did when I first got sober. He goes, well, let's do a little audit of your program, Tommy. Are you doing what you did when you first got here? And I found out I wasn't. I wasn't as willing to get to the meetings early. I wasn't as willing, and my grace and just whatever. And one of the things that hit me was I wasn't doing active step work with my sponsor. I wasn't doing it. I wasn't attracted to it anymore. So I called my sponsor and I said, and we had this conversation. He goes, well, how about you go find somebody new to take you through the steps? And I'll be darned, guys, it took a while. It's interesting to find people that love this book as much as you. And I found myself going to new meetings, and I found a guy that was always talking about the step work he was doing, the vulnerability he had, and his work he was doing with his sponsor. And it was a massive change in my recovery. Just the other day, we were doing step work, and he brought up something from an inventory I had done with him 5 years ago.
Wow.
And I thought, that was a low blow, but it's true. And it was true, and I loved him for saying it. I loved him for saying it because he cared more about my recovery than me being his friend. And the other thing that he's done for me recently is when we're on stuck points is he's asked me to reach out to others to do advanced inventory with other people to grow. And he said, now bring it back to me so we can grow together. Now, I'm attracted to that. I'm attracted to a guy who's been sober 20 and 30 years saying, I don't know, go do some step work with somebody who might know and bring it back and we can put it together. So that's been helpful for me. So thank you very much, and you guys have a super blessed day.
Thank you very much, Tommy. We got about 3 minutes, and I know Ember's just dying to talk. I don't know how I get that vibe, but Ember, would you like to speak?
Thank you. You're so funny. Hi, my name is Ember. I'm an alcoholic. I'm so glad to be on this meeting. And with less than 3 minutes, there's just two things that I wanted to say. One, I just have such deep gratitude, such an apt, topical topic for me right now. I just am filled with so much gratitude and love for my sponsor, whom I chose because she said, when I heard her speak in a meeting, that she lives a God-centered life, and that those were not words, those are deeds that she lives by. And so that was, I'm just so grateful. And something else comes to mind. Someone mentioned something, and I was sponsoring someone a while ago, and she was new in sobriety, and she always had drama with her boyfriend, and I said something harsh to her, and I'll never forget that. I basically gave my opinion, and I still regret it, And I'm really glad that I don't regret. It still pains me that I said that, and I'm really glad that I said that because I really learned from what that felt like to give her my personal opinion about something and see how it landed poorly, and to see how beautifully her life turned out. And so anyway, it really is just God, and that's what my God-centered living sponsor tells me to do. Just bring God into all of it. It's not, when I'm really feeling like I'm in the flow with a sponsee, it's God talking to me for sure. It's not me. So anyway, Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for calling on me.
Thank you, Ember. I just flashed while you were talking about 48 years of working on our own lives, Marie and I, and trying to help others, the things we've seen, the dramas we've seen. My God, it's like, it's like that movie Taxi. You talking to me, that's me talking to God. You talking to me, and he has been talking to me and saying, yeah, and he put me out there and put Marie and I out there in Al-Anon and AA. And we've seen some tragic things, and we've seen some beautiful things. And it's like, I would have never had this life, never had the value that God's given me. So I encourage anyone, if it gets rough, just hold his hand and reach out for somebody else to walk with you. I love you. Okay, so Adam, would you take us out with the Lord's Prayer, please?
Sure thing, Mickey. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.